Welcome everybody to Be Your Own Firewall, guarding from cybersecurity threats. Thanks for being here tonight. I've mentioned this before, but do feel free to have your video on. You can have your mics unmuted. I will have times where I ask you all questions, so feel free to put answers or your thoughts in the chat or say them into your microphones if that's what you're more comfortable with at the time. So what are we going over today? Tonight, we are going to define what a firewall is and what it does. We're also going to review what things make up malicious attacks. What are the cybersecurity threats that this class is hopefully going to be helping mitigate for your future? And what ways can you actually protect yourself? And then we'll also look at and practice scenarios about what these ways can be. Before we continue forward, there's something I will say. None of this class is going to be saying you should like uninstall a firewall that you have on your computer. This is more about how you can also be a firewall that helps protect yourself. So what do I mean by firewalls? Firewalls are a type of security device that could be computers, could be hardware as well. So it could be your physical computer or a program that runs on your computer that helps protect your network by filtering traffic, blocking outsiders from gaining access to any private data on your computer. A lot of computers nowadays come with its own firewall software. So a lot of ways that minimum protection does exist, but I'm not always the best explainer of exactly what a firewall is. So I'm going to share a video with you on exactly what a firewall is and how it works. So I'm going to get that playing shortly.
When surfing the internet, there are many dangers in the form of malware and hackers, all trying to gain access to your computer. Just like a security fence protects your home from burglars and intruders, a firewall keeps cybercriminals and hackers from penetrating your computer. A firewall acts as a defense system for a local computer against viruses, worms, trojans, brute force attacks, and other network attacks or attempts to compromise your computer. It can take the form of software, such as a security program, or hardware, such as a physical router. Both perform the same function, which is scanning incoming network traffic to make sure it doesn't contain blacklisted data. Firewalls scan each packet of data, which are small chunks of a larger whole, reduced in size for easy transmission, and make sure these packets don't contain anything malicious. Internet security software companies often bundle firewall solutions with their antivirus programs. In many cases, these firewalls are more sophisticated than those provided as part of a basic operating system. Common features of firewalls include the logging and reporting of attacks, successful or not, along with alarm notifications in the event of a breach. Just as with any network system, potential drawbacks of a firewall include a slowdown in traffic, especially if packets are being entirely analyzed by a user's local computer. In addition, some firewalls accidentally block legitimate sites, which can be corrected by making exceptions in the service's control panel and specifying which sites or ports are allowed past. Many computers lack even basic firewall protection, which is why it's important to make sure your computer is equipped with the latest internet security software.
Okay, so that video was just kind of a brief overview of exactly what is a firewall. In a bit more technical sense, but the basics of it is things are going in and out of communicating from your computer and going in and out of there. And the firewall helps analyze those and block things that are malicious.
When surfing the
So in general, they are protecting you by scanning the network for trouble. They log and report those attacks to whoever is the seller of the firewall itself. So that could be, if it's on your computer already, that could be Microsoft for a Windows computer. It could be something like, could be Google's own firewall, whatever company made that firewall, it reports that and logs that attack. It also analyzes downloads and uploads. So if you download something, the firewall checks it to make sure there's nothing malicious in that download and would warn you before it actually gets downloaded that it might be malicious. This is the same for uploads, which is you putting something on the internet. But in the case of this case, it would be if something was already on your system that was malicious, it would be analyzing what is actually going out and making sure that it's not from some malicious source. They want to make sure that it's actually you putting that information there. It also protects from malware, which we're going to talk about later as well. In general, firewalls are a shield. They're a wall, they're a gatekeeper to your computer as well as your internet network. Like I said before, a lot come with their own default firewall for protection, but we'll also talk about what other options are available too. So I mentioned malware. So we're gonna figure out with a short video as well what malware is and some differences between different types of malware.
Viruses, worms, Trojans, and bots are all part of a class of software called malware. The overwhelming majority of malware is created to make money illegally, often by stealing sensitive and confidential information from victims' computers and mobile devices. Malware can also be used for cyber vandalism, cyber espionage, hacktivism, cyber warfare, and various other reasons. Malware can make entry onto your computer via questionable file downloads, visiting infected websites, or through email containing a seemingly benign link or attachment. Common types of malware. Viruses. Almost all viruses are attached to an executable file, which means the virus may exist on a system but will not spread until a user opens the infected program. Viruses often originate on the internet and spread when downloading a file infected with a virus, peer-to-peer file sharing, or email attachment. Trojan. A Trojan is a harmful piece of software that looks legitimate. Users are typically tricked into leading and executing it on their systems. Trojans can not only steal your sensitive data, they can also give cyber crooks access to your system. Trojans are employed to gain access to your computer's financial and personal information. Ransomware. Ransomware holds your PC hostage and demands money. It locks up your computer, threatening to destroy data, demanding ransom or a payment for release of your data, files, or to regain the ability to use your computer again. Spyware. Spyware secretly gathers private information about the user activity, such as internet usage, and logs keystrokes via the process of keylogging to steal passwords and other sensitive data. Worms. Worms can replicate themselves and infect multiple computers on a network, causing major damage. Network worms often use computer networks to spread, slowing down traffic and relying on security failures such as outdated operating systems and no antivirus programs installed. In contrast, viruses require the spreading of an infected host file. Worms are a standalone software and do not require a host or human help to spread. The best way to protect your system from malware is to...
So they're going to talk about the best way to protect your system, but we're getting the help of, these are Kaspersky, which is a type of firewall that is talking about them. They're just going to talk about their products. So we're going to move on from there with the video. And get to probably the most important part of this presentation is, what do we do? That there's malware out there. There are things that are made to protect you. But what do you do? What do you do that can help minimize dangers to your computer, to your information that's there? So Some of the first things, these are kind of the easier things, and we'll talk about them a little more as well, is to ensure that your computer software is as up to date as possible. Having software up to date means that the provider of that software or they have checked it and they're constantly updating because they update against new threats. And just doing that is already going to protect you more than if you're using outdated software, computer software. So when Windows is about to shut down your computer because it wants to have this latest update, it's actually good to schedule that or make sure that it gets taken care of. Outdated software is not good for protection. Another easy thing to do is to ensure that your firewall and antivirus that you do have is up to date as well. Your computer being up to date protects against some threats, but you want to make sure that your firewall knows what the next threats are coming. And to do that, when it asks for updates, or if it already auto updates, it's great. Make sure that's all updated and to the latest versions. And the next thing to do, the namesake of this presentation, is to be your own firewall, which it's gonna be the next steps in this presentation. So the first part being your own firewall is to think twice before clicking. And this is going to be a reoccurring theme for this presentation. If something is telling you to install, download, or tell you to click on something because it makes you feel afraid and it's telling you that you should do things or else something bad is going to happen, just stop and think about it. It may be a malware attack or bait for you, because once you click on it, that's when a download starts that you don't want happening, or something is trying to download itself. So let's see what this might look like. So on this screen, it's saying your software may be out of date. We just talked about having up-to-date software is actually important. It's talking about the correct browser. It's telling you, exactly what I even just said, that it's going to help avoid security vulnerabilities, automatically update. So why is this interesting? Saying save or install. So there are a few things to look at before you actually download something. When you see this, there is at the very top of the screen, and it may be pretty small for you, there's somewhere that says downloadappsdesign.com, and it's talking about how Chrome is out of date. That's something to check. You can just look at the top there and see if that matches. But if you're using Google Chrome, for example, there is an actual way to check if the latest update is installed. I'm gonna reshare my screen so it's doing the full screen for a moment. So then I can actually show you what that looks like. So there is a site that is there. If you Google search update Google Chrome, you'll be able to find it, but it'll tell you how to actually check for an update and gives you instructions on how to check for an update. We go back to the main presentation and reshare back to that one slide. Okay. So something that also comes up, even if there's legitimate software, is something that was like an extra package. This actually used to happen to me a lot when I was younger. There would be, I downloaded something from a legitimate site, new software, something that I wanted. And that itself isn't going to be harmful, but it is asking me, it automatically check marks and it asks me directly, do I want this thing and this thing and this other thing? And they'll automatically be check marked. And if I don't look at it, it's going to automatically download those extra packages. And so while the software I wanted isn't necessarily malicious, it may be adding extra adware, which will show more ads, or may add an extra bit to your browser that you just don't want. So even before you actually install something from a legitimate spot, you may even want to just look at every portion of that installation screen and make sure that you aren't downloading any of those extra packages too. Another common way that malicious software gets onto a computer is something called email phishing. And email phishing is rampant, to say the least. It's so much so that there's the Federal Trade Commission specifically has information about email phishing as a way to get information. So the FTC specifically recommends, if you see an email that looks like it's trying to get you, sending you information, FTC recommends directly to check out the website or phone number indirectly. What this means is you can do a quick Google search for something. Say if you're getting an email of some sort and it comes from some company, you can do Google search on that company and try to find their legitimate website. And this way you can make sure that you're getting something from a real company, or find a more direct way to get that task done. Something you can also do is to just talk to someone like a colleague or a friend to figure out if the request is real or a phishing attempt. A workplace example is if you receive an email from your HR department or your IT department that says you must give them information, like a login, a password, personal information. Instead of just immediately replying or filling out a form that's in another link, what you could do is to call the HR or IT or whichever department directly through a known communication channel and ensure that that is really from your department and that you actually do need to do something with that. Some examples, there is a email I'd received at work where it was a subscription. Something came in that was like, activate your subscription to this journal. And I was like, I did not expect a journal subscription coming in. Turns out it got reported enough that another colleague was sent out an email that was like, yes, it's legitimate. You can actually say yes to that and join it. That was supposed to happen. And so we were able to check if it was real, if it was legitimate, and then got access to something that was actually a pretty nice surprise. But all of that requires vigilance and just thinking before you click. Just wait and think about it for a moment. So in the next slide, we're going to show an example of what an email phish may look like. And now this is also where I can ask for some participation. Have any of you seen something that looks like this before? And feel free to unmute or put an answer in the chat.
Yes, I have.
Okay, yep. So the things about waiting and before clicking is, my first question when I see this is, who is my university? Like what is that? And even if it's not something that says my university, if it's a university that I have no affiliation with, why does it why does this matter? I'm not in college anymore. So that's one question that can help just pause. Something to also notice is that this is really trying to say that something's wrong. It's saying your password's going to expire, telling you to go to a link or something is going to happen. That's another sign that this may be something you don't want to click on. It's trying to get something out of you and making you feel like it's urgent. And I'm seeing more yeses in the chat of seeing something like this. Something to note is that it's like, and I kind of mentioned this before, it's not always obvious. This may actually use your university's logo, or a university, a college, a school, something's actual logo, and say, this is happening. But this is where you go back to that previous step I mentioned, where you contact that group or that person or that website and ask, should I have gotten something like that? And they will be happy to tell you if they actually did send that to you, or it's fish and not to click on any of those links. So this is another thing that's come up, is something that's saying to claim your tax refund online, and saying there's an error, your last payment should have been there, and to get that payment back, you need to do this thing, and it came in an email. This gets people. Something like this does get people enough that the FTC, again, and the IRS have a specific statement on it. The IRS itself says the IRS does not use email, text messages, or social media to discuss tax steps or refunds with taxpayers. And that scammers are the ones sending emails that trick businesses and taxpayers into thinking that something is coming from the IRS. And I was able to pull that specifically from the IRS's website. I took a screenshot of it and was like, the IRS is saying they don't do this. So if you see something in your email that's like the IRS did that and you definitely didn't expect it, that's something to be wary about. Another example thing, and this is on the IRS site again, is that there's been new IRS impersonation email scams, and they continually remind taxpayers, the IRS does not send unsolicited emails. If you expect an email from the IRS, you'll know one should be coming, but they don't send one just willy-nilly and for you to click on something and potentially give information away. So this is another instance of just see what information sources are out there. You can go to the IRS's site and you'll find this web page that's saying don't click on those. So that's even another example of check with the IRS themselves on their known channel, which is going to be the website irs.gov. So let's take a look at this email. So just looking at it, I have these spots that have that are highlighted. What can you tell me about this email that looks suspicious, just looking at it?
The email address.
Yeah, the email address, wellsonlinebank2@comcast.net. If you are receiving an email from Wells Fargo, do you think they would use something that an email that's a Comcast.net one?
Oh.
No.
Yeah, exactly. Probably not. But if you're unsure, you could contact them. And thank you for your question, DJ. I will check that out. Thank you for your question. The question is, I heard that IRS site has a new sign in, and I think it requires self-photo. What do I know about this? I think I'll get to that close to the end of the presentation because they may have a new sign-in feature. Some other things that I've noticed on this email. The subject line itself is nondescript, and it's a call for action. It's the calls for action that are something you should be aware of. It's telling you alerts, exclamation points. It looks like something that's so important that it needs your response now. And when we look at the description, what happens is it's creating a sense of urgency and fear. And that's trying to get you to be afraid of something bad happening so that you can then click on a new thing. And now you're unfortunately downloading something, or you're going to a site where they're taking your personal information and that they may be using that maliciously. Another thing is that they give you a link that looks legitimate, but at the same time, usually, and they don't just give you a link immediately like that. So this is, again, think twice before you click. Look for these signs of a suspicious email and protect yourself and your devices. So noticing that email, notice that subject line, that sense of urgency and fear it's creating, and just pause and before clicking and continuing. So another question for you all. Does what I've said apply to social media? Yes or no?
Yes.
I heard a yes. Anyone else have guesses? I see a yes. Yes in the chat.
Yeah.
Yep.
Totally.
So yeah, this definitely applies to social media. Scammers can send malicious software, messages, websites via social media channels and private messages. Things to look out for is for messages from people you don't know. And suspicious and sudden messages, even from those you do know. They may have been hacked themselves or be the victims of a malware attack. And one of the easier ways they can get to you is if you know them and they're saying, hey, check this thing out, that you should get this, get these coupons or something like that. That may be a case where maybe you can't necessarily go to your friend's website and figure that out, but you'd give them a phone call or try chatting with them. But that's a thing to look out before you click. Just check it, be wary, think if you're expecting something or not. This could be, if it not, it could still be a hacker trying to get your information or data. I know on one of the social media sites I use, a lot of the servers there are giving massive warnings about people sending messages to either spam or to install malware on people's computers. And they disguise it as a way of getting the Prime service or the paid service, like it'll give you a month free or something like that. And that's been a big scam going on lately on that network. So the second step here is avoiding adware. But the question is, what exactly is adware? So I have another video about what exactly adware is. So we'll play that and then we'll talk about it a little bit.
While on your computer or mobile device, you notice an annoying pop-up ad. Regardless of how often you close out of it, it keeps reappearing. Chances are it's adware, short for advertisement and software. Adware is the name given to programs that are designed to display advertisements on your computer or mobile device, redirect your search requests to advertising websites, and collect data about you. This information is then used to deliver custom advertisements to you. Adware is usually bundled with other files and programs that you have downloaded and is not necessarily harmful, however, it has the potential to be. Pop-ups, toolbars installed in your browser, and changes made to your homepage and default search engines are common occurrences with adware. Aside from the annoyance these issues cause, adware can massively slow down your computer's performance and can even crash the entire system. Adware can also be malicious by hijacking your browser and redirecting you to potentially unsafe sites. Most alarming is that some adware contains Trojan viruses and spyware, specifically designed for stealthy installation. Unfortunately, adware doesn't usually have an uninstall option, meaning that these types of programs can be difficult to remove. What's more, some antivirus solutions may not be able to determine whether a specific adware program is a threat or not. Fortunately, there are many ways to limit exposing your computer or mobile device to adware. For example, make sure that whatever files and programs you download are from a reputable website. When installing programs, Carefully read through the terms and service agreement for any hidden adware that you might not be aware of. Pop-up blockers can also limit the exposure to adware. Not all adware is badware. However, for the dangerous forms of adware.
Okay. So with that, there's a few points to get out of there. So something that is being recommended is when you're downloading something, only download it from reputable sites. So that is one step to kind of trying to avoid adware. A second notice is to read through every prompt when downloading software. I mentioned this a little bit before, but sometimes the software providers will have those checkboxes and is going to prompt you to maybe download an extra thing or two. This could potentially be adware, or it could be just something that you don't want. This is something to do is just read through every prompt when you're downloading new software. And to go through the terms of service. And by those, it's that wall of text that sometimes looks like it's a lot of legal speak. You're really looking for things that are about what information they can do with information, what information they can put onto your computer when you're looking through those. And you're specifically going to be looking at privacy as one of the areas to look at when looking at those terms of use. Another option is install ad blockers or an add-on or software that helps avoid malicious ads. Ad blockers often are browser add-ons. So there are multiple forms that, and they are legal, that just block extra ads that are on websites. It might not block everything, and there's a constant race between websites themselves and ad blockers to see, what things they can go around, but that can potentially help avoid malicious ads too. So, the question is clicking on ads safe? And so there's something specific about this to talk about. There's something called malvertising. Some ads can actually download malicious material once they're clicked on. And that is what we mean by malvertising. So even if they're on legitimate sites, there have been advertising campaigns targeting major websites that will download malware once you've clicked on them. So some of the best bets to help avoid that is to use an antivirus software or another firewall software, because sometimes you'll see an ad that you actually want something from them. But also to use an ad blocker. Ad blockers can be helpful for that, in making sure you don't see those extra ads or even be tempted to click on them. So something else is to secure your surroundings. Just kind of looking around yourself and kind of checking, and we're going to talk about what this actually means. So when this is securing your surroundings, this is something like securing passwords, ensuring that only you can access your device. Leaving your phone or a computer or a tablet unattended without a password or a lock or something is kind of on the same like thought level of if you'd left a drink unattended at a bar. You don't want to leave it unattended. You don't know if someone grabbed it, if they took a sip out of it, or they added something to the device itself. Something else is to secure your home Wi-Fi. A lot of the times when you get a new Wi-Fi network installed at home, you can potentially leave it unprotected, no password, which might be really nice for your neighbor, but it could also be something that a malicious actor could access, and then they'll have access to the network, which you also use, and put something onto that network. So securing your home Wi-Fi with a password is also another way to be secure. Another tip is connecting to secure or known Wi-Fi networks. So when you're, say, if you're at a coffee shop, oftentimes they'll have a Wi-Fi network, or if you're traveling, you're on a hotel. And to actually, just because this point is coming up, for DJ's asked, should we change passwords if we get a new modem from a Wi-Fi company? I would, if it came with a password, that password itself is acting as protection. If you want it to be something that is more unique to you, yes, that would be to change that. And he's asking, should routers be updated or replaced? With my research for this, I don't have an answer for that. Routers, from like offhand knowledge, tend to last a while. So I don't have a solid answer for that. I'll definitely look up to see what that answer should be at the end of closer to the end of this. But for changing the password, if you get a new password on a modem or a router that doesn't have a password, yes, you should add a password to it. If it already has one and you know what it is, that is a form of protection on it. The only people that may know it would then be the Wi-Fi company that gave it to you, which it might be important for them to actually have access to it, depending on the company. So back right up to the point, connecting to secure and or known Wi-Fi networks. So if you're traveling, you could go to a hotel. Often hotels will have a free Wi-Fi of some sort, or if you're at a hospital, they'll have free Wi-Fi for guests there, or even a coffee shop. An important thing to do is to connect to the known Wi-Fi network. So even if they say they have a free Wi-Fi, an important thing to do is ask what the correct network they should join is, because someone can set up Wi-Fi near one of those stations and call it the same name as that building. So if you're, let's say I'm going to just use Forward South Hospital, for example. If they have a Wi-Fi, and this is completely just a random example, it's not actually their Wi-Fi. If they have a Wi-Fi that's like Forward free, and there's another one that says like Forward South free Wi-Fi. There are two Wi-Fi networks, but they also both are related to Forward South. The best thing to do to know which is the secure or known Wi-Fi is to just ask an employee there. They're going to at least know what it's called. And if it may be one that's actually password protected and you need to ask anyway to join their network. So just asking what the Wi-Fi is at the location is a way to be secure. And that is the next point. If you don't know what the network is, just ask before connecting. So that is the end of the formal presentation, but I know there were